Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 109 of Petey's Awesome Guest Panel. Now, before we introduce my special guest star for this evening, I want to introduce tonight's special co-host for this evening, longtime wrestling fan and a dear good friend of mine, Mr. Christopher Petey.
Heyo.
Good to see you again, Chris.
Good
I know I said it in every episode, but I mean it, man. In addition to Chris joining us, we got not only a longtime wrestling fan and a dear friend of mine, but a wrestler in training at Reality of Wrestling, and that is Mr. Darius JoJo Givens.
Call me Sugarland's Finest. You'll be seeing that name a lot real soon. But how is everybody doing?
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to see you in the big leagues one day, there.
I appreciate it.
Now, introduce tonight's special guest for this evening. Let me just say he is a man who's been in the professional wrestling business for a very long time. He's a veteran pro wrestler. And before I introduce this guy, I just want to read this gentleman's accolades, a couple of them. Not only was he a former WWF/E tag team champions with the Godfather, back then the Good Father, but he was also ranked in the Pro Wrestling Illustrated and in the top 500 at number 81 in the top 500 singles wrestlers in the year 2001. And he's one of my favorite wrestlers growing up. And my guest at this time is Mr. Barry Bull Buchanan. Mr. Buchanan, welcome. How are you today, sir?
Hey, guys. I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome. How about you guys?
Yeah, I'm all up okay.
I'm doing real good.
Having you on is just so much excitement, Mr. Buchanan. I mean, all the three of us have been huge fans of your work since, from day one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's nice. I love doing these things.
So great to have you. And we're going to dive into the questions here. And the first question is, this is I ask every wrestler, and that is, how and when did you get your first big break into the professional wrestling business? Take us there.
I was in college. I was playing basketball in college, but I always wanted to be a wrestler. And so I think in maybe 90 or 91, there were some guys doing it locally. And I went down there one night, and a guy named James Hammonds trained me, and several other guys. And I just started working the small show, his shows and other small shows. And, just like everybody else does, I branched out. I had been working about 6 or 7 months, and I guess it would be my first break in the business. I got on Atlanta TV on Channel 36. They had a block with Smoky Mountain in Memphis, and I got on. It was called North Georgia Wrestling, and there was a guy down there named Ron Starr, Rotten Ron Starr. Really took a liking to me, and Sammy Kent, the owner, he liked me. So they pushed me. They put the belt on me and pushed me. And Smoky Mountain, like I say, it was their block of wrestling. It was a 3-hour block on Saturday nights. And so it was actually North Georgia's block of wrestling, but they included Memphis and Smoky Mountain. I think they might have got a little money off of it. But Cornette would come down and do Cobb County Civic Center once, twice a year, and he would always bring Smoky Mountain guys, but he'd also he already had the relationship with Vince, so he'd bring a WWE guy. Savage came in, Lex came in. So, it was kind of a big deal. And since we promoted it on the Atlanta end on their TV, they gave us one match on there. Well, New Jack Mustafa had been working down there with me, and I got to be friends with them. And they went up. They had their match, and they went up. And then it was my turn on the next one. Me and a guy named Lee Thomas, we went out and, to the best of my ability, tore the house down. And Cornette, New Jack Mustafa, and some other guys, Ricky Morton, the Armstrongs, they all knew me from the Indies. So they told Cornette to watch it, and he did. And he said, told me, I don't really have a spot for you right now. Just keep working. So I kept working around, Georgia and Alabama, a little bit in Tennessee. And he finally called me and said, "Hey, I got a spot for you." And, that was, I guess, the first big break.
Huh. Very cool. And can I just say too, Chris, before you ask your question, that there were two wrestlers growing up that I was always afraid of. New Jack was one of them, and Scott Steiner was one of them. So when you said New Jack, I'm like, oh, and I'm a New Jack fan. I loved his work in ECW.
He was. I mean, he was a really good guy. He was. He kind of took me under his wing a little bit, and helped me out. He helped me get there, and later on, in no small part, I'm sure, helped me get a shot up at ECW too. So, Yeah, he was a good guy.
We're definitely going to talk about your run in ECW soon. Before that, Chris, you had your question, right?
Yeah. What are your usual preparations and methods before a match?
Just stretch a little bit. I usually had some cables, some bands. I'll try to, because I mean, my thing, part of my whole thing was, how big I was. So I try to pump up in the back, push ups, work my cable a good bit. That's about it. Just go over, and like any other sport you do, you go over in your head what you're going to do, what you think might happen, what you want to happen. That's pretty much it. Nothing special.
Oh, okay. And you mentioned also your time, I believe, when you worked with New Jack and Mustafa. That was during Smoky Mountain Wrestling, right?
Very briefly. As soon as I came in, New Jack and Mustafa were on their way out. They still had a couple of shots to do, so we didn't get to work together up there actually. But we got to do a couple of shots together before they left. And then when they left, I guess that was the whole thing that kind of stirred things up with Jimmy and Paul there for a while.
Oh, and I was gonna ask you too, like as a whole, like during your whole time in Smoky Mountain Wrestling's, memories of working that territory, because you worked as the Punisher and your time as the Punisher character and working with James E. Cornette.
Oh, it was great. It was everything I thought that wrestling would be when I was growing up. I just imagined how I thought pro wrestling would be. I imagined Tommy Rich, driving a Trans Am with the tops out, going from one show to the other. I had the whole ideal in my head of what it was, and when I got to Smoky Mountain, that's about as close as it got to what I thought it would be. It was a traditional It was run like a traditional territory. It was one of the last territories, there in Memphis. But Cornette really, he really helped me in more ways than one. He helped me with my in-ring stuff. He helped me, loosen up on promos. Just the psychology that I learned being with him, because we were part of his. I think it was a Cornette's Army, Cornette's militia.
Yeah.
So it was me, Buddy Landell, and Terry Gordy and Tommy Rich. And I mean, with those guys around, I mean, you got to be dumb if you can't learn from those guys.
Best names in the business.
Great.
Yeah. Say what you will about Jim Cornette, but hey, he definitely knew his shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and especially in that area at that time, it was kind of the transitional period. When we were still kind of going from pro wrestling to sports entertainment. Those fans down there, they still believed in what you were doing, and so it was, like I say, it was run like a traditional, and everything made sense. Everything made sense down there. There were very few times where you sitting there scratching your head like, this doesn't. I don't know why they're doing this. Everything made sense. So it was a real good place to learn. And with all the guys, Ricky and Robert, Dirty White Boy, Tracy Smothers, there was a lot of young guys that went there, and New Jack Mustafa, they were, Jerome was a couple of years in the business at that time. And I think, maybe Mustafa, about the same amount of time, couple of years. So, they were still young in the business. I was still young in the business. They were just headbangers, Chris Candido, all the people you can think of. There was a lot of young talent that went there and learned and became successful, like Kane, Al Snow.
What did you say? Was D'Lo Brown there?
Oh, absolutely. D'Lo was there. And that's first place I met D'Lo, and still friends today. Yeah, D'Lo was there. Yeah, I'm sure I'm leaving some out, but just the young guys that went there to learn, and the veterans were very open about teaching you. They didn't mind they didn't mind teaching you, showing you what to do, what not to do. And I got to ride with Tommy Rich and Brad Armstrong, so. I had two professors there in the car with me, just at my ready, if I asked a question, there was always an answer.
Very cool. And we mentioned, of course, we talked about ECW, and this is going to lead to Darius's next question.
I mean, it would be a dream for me to ever have been or wrestled in ECW, but unfortunately, that won't ever happen for me. But how was it for you in '96?
Oh God, it was so Smoky Mountain is shut down, and I was there when it shut down. So if Smoky Mountain wasn't going to be there, I mean, I want to go to ECW because that was the only other thing really happening outside of Vince and WCW. It's funny, I grew up, watching Georgia Championship and then World Championship Wrestling and then WC, so I always had figured I would wind up going to WCW, and that's really kind of where I wanted to go. But once I got to Smoky Mountain and I saw how the machine worked, when I saw actually, kind of got close enough to see how the WWE worked, it changed my mind because I knew just from what I heard from guys in down in Atlanta and what a few of the guys I knew in New York, that this was a much smoother oiled machine and it was, really running on all cylinders. So, but yeah, it was after Smoky Mountain shut down. I had a friend named Billy Black. He was part of a tag team with Joel Deaton. They wrestled over in All Japan a lot. And they wrestled over here in the States a good bit, but more known for Japan. Well, at that time in ECW was when the tape trade, all the people were trading tapes, and it just got in full swing. And so fans over here were getting to see, All Japan, New Japan stuff, Frontier, FMW, stuff that they'd never seen before, didn't even know.
Masawa.
Exactly, yeah. So Paul contacted, and I think maybe Scorpio knew him from Japan too. So they wanted to bring him and Joel up. Well, Joel wasn't available. I think it might have been Puerto Rico or something. But Joel wasn't available, so Billy called me. And I, of course, I want to go. So we went up there. We did a house show. I think we worked a handicap match, I think against Ian or Axel, right? I can't remember which one, but we worked a little handicap match, just something real quick. And we worked the Eliminators on TV that night, on Saturday night. But man, once again, it didn't disappoint because as much as I thought, Smoky Mountain would be like the traditional wrestling territory, I had an idea of what ECW was going to be too. And it absolutely did not disappoint. Them people were nuts, man. I mean, they were literally like hanging from the rafters, going nuts. It was a whole atmosphere up there. It was a totally different atmosphere up there. I guess the closest thing I could think, that it reminded. I remember thinking at the time, it reminded me of whatever the Roman Coliseum must have looked like and sounded like. Because there was, at one point I'm looking out there, because we did our stuff pretty early and got to sit back and watch the show. And I think I'm pretty sure that's the night that New Jack cut the promo where they had actually turned them babyface, and New Jack cut the babyface promo. I think it was that night that I was there. Man, it was just, there was tables scattered everywhere, bent up metal and, bodies everywhere. And I said, man, and the people were just, like I said, going nuts. We got there at maybe 2 or 3 o'clock and it was already lined all the way around the building and out in the street. And then the coolest thing to me, I know it, of all the stuff that, that would happen that weekend, the coolest thing to me was we stayed up till about 3 o'clock in the morning doing promos at the I think it was the Travel Lodge, the hotel there that everybody stayed at. We stayed up till like 3 o'clock in the morning, and everybody stayed up, and people were going from room to room, having a few drinks, whatever. But coming in and out, and like Shane Douglas was kind of direct. I guess he was producing, some of the stuff. So we went in, did ours, and just I don't know. It was so different than anything I'd ever been at. It was really cool.
It's like ECW was like its own universe. It was like this own universe.
Yeah.
Wrestlers.
Yeah.
I also want to get your time also in working in the United States Wrestling Association. Of course, this is where the Truth Commission, I remember this from WWF days, but you formed the Truth Commission. It was originally in the USWA, and and you were, of course, your character was Reckon. Did I say that correctly? Reckon?
Recon.
Recon. Sorry. Pardon.
Yeah.
And I just want to get your thoughts on doing the Truth Commission and working with names like Don Callis and Kurgan.
Oh, so right after ECW, we went that one time, and Cornette called me and said, "Hey, I got you a contract." So they sent me a contract, brought me up to Stanford, did the whole tour, and went down to Memphis. The first time I went as the Punisher. I just, I remember Jerry Lawler calling me up on the phone, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, holy shit, this is Jerry Lawler. And, asked me, well, what you got an idea of what you want to do? And the only thing I think of was, the Punisher, which I'd been doing in Smoky Mountain. And so I said, he said, okay, well, give me a date to start. And I went out there. And I worked about 6 months, 6, 7, 8 months like that. And I was at home for a little while. I think I had done something to my knee, so I was home for a few weeks. And they called me and said, "Hey, we got something else," and they flew me up to Stanford and they sized me up for the T-shirt and kind of laid the idea of the gimmick out for it. And so they got us all together. They flew us all in. We all met for the first time up in Stanford, and we learned how to march and how to, try to look like some type of actual military group. Robin, the original commandant, was he was actually in the South African military. So he taught us all how to, salute and do everything. And so we worked up there and just worked on a couple of, tag team moves, stuff like that. And then they sent us down to Memphis as Truth Commission. And, it was just like, okay, when are they going to call us up? And, it seemed like forever, but I can't actually remember. I'm out for 6, 7 months. I think maybe we were down there, and they called us up for a dart match. We did a dart match, and then they called us up and we did a shotgun Saturday night, and then we were off and rolling. The original, like I said, the original commandant, Robin Smith, he was an actor from South Africa. I think he had some visa trouble or something, so they had to let him go. And then Don came right in, and to me, we never missed a beat. I remember watching Don. He was mainly a manager, but I remember watching him go out and have a match with Scotty 2 Hotty, and he walked back through the curtain, and my exact words was, "What the hell they're thinking? I don't know why you ain't wrestling and we're talking." I mean, he was good, and then on the mic he was even better. But we all got along. It was all so new. We started doing TVs and they put us on the road and we would all travel together. We always were in a minivan. We'd always travel together. So we hung out all the time. We hung out at the shows, but it was a lot of fun. It was everything was still new back then, and we were enjoying it together. And then Luke Poirier came in with us right before we debuted. The original Truth Commission was myself, Robert Mayette, Kurgan, and Hank, Mike Halleck. He wrestled as Mantar for a little stint there. That was the original Truth Commission. We went down to Memphis. We worked, thought we did some good work down. We got to work with a lot of good guys. PG-13 was down there. We got to work with them. We got to work with Steve Dahl and Billy Travis, Rex King. Paul Diamond was down there at the time. Tommy was there. It was just a lot of good hands down there that we got to work with. And in Memphis, you were working 6, 7 nights a week. A typical week in Memphis for us. The Coliseum was still running when I first went, but when we went back to Truth Commission, the Coliseum wasn't running anymore. So Monday night was usually a house show. Tuesday was Louisville, Kentucky. Wednesday was Tunica, Mississippi at the casino. Thursday was usually a house show. Friday was a house show. Saturday morning, we did live TV in Memphis at 10 o'clock. We went from there all the way across town to the big one. It was a huge indoor flea market. We went to that. We wrestled there, and then we hauled ass to Nashville that night and wrestled it, which was a 4-hour drive, and wrestled in Nashville that night. And then Sunday may or may not be off day. So, and you're working with those guys like that every night. I mean, you got to get better.
Did you see any difference between the USWA's version of the Truth Commission and WWE's version of the Truth Commission? Or do you think it was
Well, like I said, they changed up, Mantar, and I never really got a reason why. But to be honest, I thought we did do well down there. But it was one of them things, I guess. They want to go in another direction, who knows? But Luke, Tank, Mantar, if a lot of the people remember his Mantar, he was huge, but he was quick, he could move. So he was more, like a rhino type of worker. And Luke was a little bit taller. We were about the same height. He might have been a little shorter. He was about 250, 260, well built, and he was more of a classical wrestler. And he had wrestled for years over in Germany as a Rambo. He worked for Otto once as a Rambo over in Germany, which helped us out because all the guys, most of the guys that were up there at that time, Bradshaw, Road Warriors, the Quebecers, everybody that was up there at that time had worked over in Germany. And Luke was just a really cool guy, and he would always take care of the guys that came over, and everybody remembered it. So it definitely helped us, get in. Robert Mayette is just a sweetheart of a guy, really good dude. And it's nice to see he landed on his feet really well. He's done several movies. I think he was in 300. He was in Sherlock Holmes, Pacific Rim. So he's been in a ton of movies. He does a lot of theater and stuff around there. But that was just a good group, man. We had fun together. I mean, we really enjoyed. Sometimes you like, I got to go back out on the road this week. But we look forward to getting out on the road and seeing each other.
So it's like, oh, I can't wait for work today. What's it going to bring today?
Yeah, it was. I mean, we're doing our dream job, and the guys that we're traveling and hanging out with all the time are all our best friends. So, yeah, it was great.
Cool stuff. Chris, your next question?
Yeah. Let's see. I think this one is actually yours, Pete.
No, it was yours. I give it to you, remember?
Oh, well, you talked about working at
7.
the United States Wrestling Association, right?
No,
and the next one is yours. Huh?
No, I just answered those 2 questions. It was number 7.
Never mind.
Oh.
All right, so your memories of your first audition with WWE.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So like I said, they flew us back then. They flew you up to Stanford, and you actually met and sat down with Vince and talked about what you were doing. So I did that, and they sent us down to Memphis, and I was working down there the first time as the Punisher, and I got a call from it might have been Bruce, I'm not sure, but I got a call saying, hey, we got you booked on a house show in Nashville this weekend, and told me when to be there. So I got there, and lo and behold, I'm working my good friend Tracy Smothers. So yeah, it was at the Nashville. It was at the Municipal Auditorium. It was a house show there. It wasn't TV. It was just a house show. But me and Tracy went out there, and he let me, he made me look like $1 million, a lot better than what I probably actually was. But yeah, that was actually my first time in the ring with them. Now, like I said, they had the relationship with Cornette, and I know that that some of the people up there, watched the product, knew what was going on. So I'm sure they had seen me there, and Cornette, I think pitched me to him quite a bit, when he would have the chance. Oh, sorry, hold on a minute.
No worries.
That's my dog. Hush. Okay.
The next question I had for you, because we're going to talk about like your main roster debut, and I remember this very well. I remember as a kid watching this, and this is back in a time when Sunday Night Heat was absolutely amazing to watch. I think Christopher and Darius can agree with that. Like back then, Sunday Night Heat was like Monday Night Raw and SmackDown was must-watch TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you debuted March 19, 2000. I remember this. Sunday Night Heat, you helped Big Boss Man attack Midian. Memories of your main roster debut and working with the late great Ray Traylor, aka the Big Boss Man.
Yeah. So I was working in OVW with Jim Cornette. He brought me in when they first started it up. Had an idea for a new gimmick, and it was called Bull Buchanan. But it was actually I was a convict out on work release from Eddyville, Kentucky, the state penitentiary down there. That was the Louisville OVW version of Bull Buchanan. Well, he called me on Monday and said, "Hey, you got to be at TV tomorrow." And I said, "Oh, I know, I'm driving up." That's what day we did our TV on. He said, "No, you got to be on SmackDown tomorrow, and you got to have an outfit like the Boss Man." So it was real spur of the moment. But, you know, I'd never met Ray before, but he was just one of those people that when you meet, you feel like you've known for, 10 years. So we clicked right off the bat. We started traveling together and everything. But, yeah, I remember, I remember getting there, and the OVW version of Bull Buchanan, the prisoner, I was bald, but I had a ponytail coming out of the back of my, back of my head. I had a ponytail. And I remember getting to TV thinking, this don't look like any prison guard I've ever seen. So we went in, and Ray took me in and asked Vince, and he said, yeah, do you mind getting rid of it? And I was like, oh, absolutely not. So I went out and cut it off. But the main thing I remember about it was great and everything, and I got the top rope to do the leg drop, and, I jumped for everything I was worth, of course. But the main thing I remember, if you'll go back and watch it, look at I think it's my right foot. There's a piece of tape hanging off of it. I stepped on that piece of tape as I was coming. Somebody had pulled it off and thrown it down or something. And I stepped on it. And I remember watching it as I jumped. I remember being midair and looking at my foot and seeing this tape just flapping in the breeze. And at first I thought it was toilet paper. And I said, oh, God, But it was actually tape. But, it went good, that was a good kickoff, and then they rolled us right into, we went right in, I think maybe the next week, I think maybe we were in Miami or somewhere, and we rolled right into the cage, me and Boss Man against Rocky. So, man, it was great. And and Ray was one of the guys I watched because I knew he's only 20 or 30 miles up the road from where I live. And I figured, well, if somebody from there can make it, maybe I can too. So, he was always one of the guys I watched. And to me, he's one of the best big men of all time, probably one of the smoothest. But we like I said, we hit right off our families. We started going, together, off when we were off work, we'd start doing stuff together, and our families hung out. And I met some of the other people I didn't know. I met the Steiners through him. People like a Kurt Hennig, him and Kurt were big buddies. So, yeah, man, he was a great guy. He was a good teacher too. He was a real good teacher. You look at the guys that he kind of took under his wing. He Albert, Big Matt, he had a little run with him. A Big Show, Big Show worked program with him, and everybody worked with him, learned something from him. He was just a real good dude.
And like you said, like how you said like before, where you said that you and Trey, like it seems like you guys known each other for a long time. That's exactly how I feel about my co-host. Like I feel like we became friends in recent times, but I feel like I've known these guys for years.
Right. You just click with people sometimes.
Absolutely.
That's so true.
And Darius, before you ask the next question, I gotta ask, because you just mentioned Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. Like when you were around Perfect, Kurt Hennig, did he ever do like ribs? Because he was a known practical joker.
Oh yeah. It was, but it was pretty harmless. for the most part. You know, but at the time we were working in two separate companies, so we didn't get to hang out a whole lot. But when you know, when we crossed paths, I remember you know, like sometimes when we'd be in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and you know, the WCW guys would be in Philadelphia. Well, everybody flew out of Philadelphia, so we would all meet up at the hotel bar and, you know, hang out and, you know, see guys you ain't seen in a while, and you know, meet new friends, that kind of stuff. It was great. It was a great time to be in. You know, if I could pick any, I say that, you know, I'm a huge fan of the 80s, a huge fan of the 80s, because that's what I grew up, you know, watching. But man, I mean, I don't think it could have been a better time to be in the business. You know, the money was real good. The houses and the pay-per-views were just, I mean, they were, you know, off the chain. There's so much interest from the outside world. You know, we kind of live in a bubble most of the time, but there was so much interest in our sport from the outside world. You know, it became so big. So it was a great time. You know, I remember being off the road for about a month there a few times, or a month too. And I could sit at home and I could watch the WWE pay-per-view one weekend, WCW the next weekend, and ECW the next weekend. You know, I mean, it was just you know, it was a good time to be in the business.
Yeah, and not only to be in the business, but to be a fan too.
It was the best
Yeah,
time to be a
yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, nothing against the guys today, you know, and
Yeah, I mean,
there was just
we're good fit.
it was just a if you watch the old, you know, from 96, 97, you know, 97, 98, in that period, man, people never sat down. You know, they were live the whole time.
You had NWO, you had The Rock,
Yeah.
you had Stone Cold.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just the Monday Night Wars. I remember being a kid, you were flipping between WWF Raw and you were WCW Nitro.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, when we would go in, because, you know, we did Monday Night Raw, it was live. At that time, SmackDown was taped on Tuesday nights.
yes.
When we would go into the building on Tuesdays, when you would go by the production room would have taped up on the door there the breakdown of both shows side by side, and each segment and what each segment did. So you could sit right there and put your hand on something that said, okay, I was against the NWO last night. You know, they scored a whatever, and we only scored that. And you knew that the office looked at that too. I mean, of course they do. So, you know, and I'm gonna be honest, you know, a lot of people don't realize, I think, but you know, they were really kicking our ass there for a while. And you know, from what I understood at the time, just from people, you know, that had been there a long time, you know, we were only a few bad breaks away from being in real trouble. You know, if Taker, Shawn, you know, some of those guys had left, we'd have been in a real hole. You know, I don't know that anything would have changed, but you know, it would really put us in a hole, worse than we were. But you know, we eventually dug ourselves out, and then you know, the rest is history, I guess.
And won the
Yeah.
war.
Yeah.
There, your next question.
Yes, I have a.
Oh, go ahead, Darius.
Oh, I'm sorry. My main question is, especially as somebody who's trying to get into business, what is it that the WWF is looking for?
Well, they've got a program in place, and they know that they can train almost anybody to wrestle. So what they're looking for is that everybody says it, and a lot of people have a different meaning for it. But to me, it's the airport scenario. They're looking for that person. When you're walking down the thoroughfare in the airport, you see hundreds, thousands of people, and for the most part, they're all a blur. When one person jumps out at you and makes you notice them, to me, that's what that it factor is. If you have 100 people standing in line, there's one or two that are going to stick out to you. And usually that's what it means. You can just, it's a look, it's a sound, it's a way they stand, the way they carry themselves. You know, it can be almost anything, but it's something that separates you from everybody else. So, and like, I said it was a great time to be in the business, when I think it's a great time to be in the business now because for the first time in a long time, you have a lot of options. You have WWE, you have AEW, you have ROH, you have Impact, you have MLW, and then, New Japan's doing great. Noah's still hanging around, All Japan, they're still, you can get booked there. So to me, it's another great time to be in the business.
Yeah, because everywhere you go, there's wrestling, whether it's in a different country, whether it's on different promotions.
Everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Right. And the
that.
indie stuff,
Well, tacking onto that, though, would you say that TNA and AEW are the spiritual successors to ECW and WCW, respectfully?
Yes, absolutely.
I agree.
I watch AEW now, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I actually mean it in a good way. I watch AEW now, and I get that old vibe from the WCW that was kicking our ass. I get that live. It's a different feel than it is with WWE. But yeah, I absolutely do. I absolutely do. I think the remnants of they kind of both went down at the same time. So, a lot of the guys, of course, went over there, together. But Impact was a viable option there for a while. I don't know. It seemed like it could never really get over the hump, as far as making money.
Yeah.
I mean, their content was great, man. Some of the best matches you ever seen.
I was just
when they
watching
were
the
in for a while, they were also doing pretty good.
Yeah.
It was just that, like, them getting relocated over to another network. What was up with that?
Oh yeah, we did it, and it worked for us because it was, it's WWE. When we went to Spike, and they had to come back to USA. But yeah, I don't know why they switched networks. D'Lo went there. D'Lo was working there a good bit. He was still working there some when we were over in Japan. So I don't know. I was pulling for it because what I learned, when we were in the Monday Night Wars, of course, you want your side to win, but at the same time, and something I guess I kind of didn't really think about at the time, that's a whole lot less jobs for people. I mean, you're a whole company. I don't know what their roster was, but now all those guys are out of jobs, and of course they're going to come, looking for jobs where you work. And I mean, when Booker T comes looking for a job, are you not going to give it to him?
Yeah.
I mean, you're crazy. One of the best, to me, one of the best workers of all time. I got a lot of my
example
stuff
is Diamond
from
Dallas
Booker
Page.
T. Yeah.
And how his character got completely nerfed when he was moved over to WWE.
Oh yeah. Yeah, long term, a lot of guys, I don't think it was that good for them long term. But it was just less jobs for everybody. So I was really pulling for TNA. Just the same way I am for AEW. I hope AEW does great because it's competition. It forces you to be better. And it gives more guys a place that they can go and they can learn and they can actually make a living doing it. It's hard to do this when you're just doing it on the weekends. To me, the guy that comes out, on Raw or whatever, with the chisel 6-pack and broad shoulder, just looks like a Greek god. It's a lot harder to do that when you're working a 9-to-5 job. You're working a construction job. You're out there in the heat all day. And then after you get done, you still have to go train. You still have to, get in the gym and train. It's those guys that really impress me. It's a lot easier, when you're doing it for your living, because, I've done it. I'm not saying anything that, I don't know about. You get up in the morning, when on your off days, you get up whenever. You breeze to the gym for a few hours, go tan for a little bit, whatever. Now, when you're on the road, it's a grind. And it can be brutal. But it's the guys that are out there, struggling and digging and scratching and making it work, while still working a 9 to 5 job and not being able to rely on this for their living. That's the guys that really inspire me.
It's incredible. And going back what you said about TNA, it's like you said, they at one point they were the second rival promotion to WWE at one point, and then AEW came in and then Impact kind of phased into like the third spot.
Yeah. TNA was, outside of WWE, and I remember, I think it was after we bought WCW. I was sitting in the airport in Birmingham. We were flying to Memphis that morning, and I think it was me and Dr. Tom Pritchard were sitting there, and I asked if if they, because I knew of course you'd heard the rumblings that Jeff and Jerry were going to do something, and I think they just kind of kicked their thing off, and I remember asking Tom, I said, do you think anybody at the office watches what they do? And he was like, yeah, I'm sure they do. They were the only other thing going at the time. Like I said, I wish they could have kept it going, which Impact of course is, but there at one time they were traveling overseas and filling up arenas. So I guess it's AEW now, but to me, and then the way my son Brooks Jensen, the way that we had COVID kind of wrecked his, kind of knocked him off the tracks for just a minute. Not he didn't have it, but he had just graduated from high school when COVID, or he had just finished his amateur wrestling season when COVID hit, and so and he was already working. He'd been working for a couple of years. All indie wrestling shut down, so he didn't really get in the ring or anything. And my ideal for him was to start working, the small shows around here. Maybe get a shot, and maybe go over to one of the dojos in Japan. Stay away for a few months and train and learn. Come back, maybe working something like ROH or something like Impact and work his way up. But COVID just kind of derailed that, and WWE gave him a call and showed some interest, and if they call you, you're gonna go. So that's what he did. But I hope AEW does well. I enjoy watching it. I know a bunch of the guys there, especially being here in Atlanta. Cody's Nightmare Factory's here in Atlanta. And a lot of the guys work some of the indie shows around here. There's a lot of crossover. Some of the guys that train there, come down to work. So they're really like the new WCW to me. They're kind of based out of Atlanta. And they're letting their guys. They're also letting some of their guys. They're letting their guys go and work other places, which I would love to be in that situation, where you're working, you're working on national TV here in America, but you can still go do a shot in Japan. You can still go do a shot in Puerto Rico. You keep your feelers out there just in case something goes south here at home.
Absolutely. And we're all three of us are excited to ask this question because growing up, we were a longtime fan of not only you, but we were a big fan of Right to Censor. And
Darius still gonna post this question.
Well, wait, what? Oh yeah, I'm terribly sorry, Darius. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Petey.
No, because it will actually segue into the next question.
Right.
So go ahead, Darius. I'm terribly sorry.
No, that's no problem. All I was asking is, I was actually at the Monday Night Raw where you and the Good Father at the time of our Right to Censor actually won the tag titles from the Hardy Boys. How was that?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where was that at? I can't remember.
It was the Houston, at the time it was called the Compact Center. Yes.
Oh yeah. That was cool, beyond cool. To be a world champion in WWE. I mean, that's what I think everybody aspires for. And I knew the gimmick was getting so much heat. That I know that I think part of it was, Godfather hated the the gimmick, and and I couldn't blame him. I'd
was
always been a bad
to its
guy.
initial gimmick.
Yeah. I mean, I'd been a bad guy ever since I'd been up there, and everywhere else I'd been a bad guy. So it was nothing new to me. But he went from being one of the most popular guys on the whole roster to, being the good father. And, and I'm sure that, he was selling a lot of merch back then too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it put a dent in
yeah.
that too. So, I think everybody understood, he wasn't very happy about it, but it never affected business. We always, went out there and did business, and you got to do stuff you don't like sometimes, but a professional, he was a true professional about it. It never showed through. Every time we went out there, he gave it 100%, and promos and everything. And actually, me and him got to be pretty good friends. Me, him, and Teddy Long used to ride together, so got to be good friends. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a great time for me.
And this is
And then me and Stevie had got to be friends too. We'd met in ECW on that one shot, and we'd hung out a little bit between then. So and of course I knew Val, and Ivory was great. She she jumped right in both feet, and so there again, it's much more enjoyable when you're doing it with people you like.
absolutely.
That's life in general.
Yeah. Mr. Buchanan, who pitched the idea of you joining Right to Censor?
I'm not sure. They broke me and Boss Man up. Ray had to get his knee scoped and a couple other things, so he's going to be out for a minute. And I was doing the singles thing, and I got to Albany, New York, and they asked me what size shirt I wore, and and Stevie came and got me and said, well, hey, you know what we're doing? So he laid it all out to me, because I didn't really know. I mean, I knew he'd come out a few times before by himself. So I knew he was doing something new, but I didn't really know what it was supposed to be. So he laid the whole ideal out to me, and I was ready for it, because it was something to do, something something to get us going in a direction, So but yeah, there at first it was just me and him, and then gradually we gained more members, and it had a lot of, people really hated that gimmick. We got some of the loudest responses of anybody, babyface or heel. There was a lot, when that most annoying music in the world.
Oh yeah,
that
The siren.
Yes.
warning.
Yes, we hated it because it was so loud. It was just like it was in your ear. Standing backstage, we even hated it. But as soon as that siren started, people just, they hated it.
And especially,
and that was our job.
I was in the arena for when you had those sirens going off, and let me tell you, in the arena, it is so loud and so annoying. Like the pyro, just in general. Like,
oh yeah,
there's no comparison.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, that pyro, man. Oh yeah, there's been several times, standing in the ring, with Kane, working Kane, doing his thing, and that stuff blows. It's yeah.
Yes, Kane's was the
Can't hear for a
loudest
second.
pyro.
Oh,
Yeah.
And the worst thing was, it just comes out of nowhere, because at the time it would just be like boom, and then Kane would, you wouldn't even see it coming. All of a sudden, your heart would just drop.
well,
Yeah.
Mr. Buchanan, before Chris, you ask your next question, I got to ask Mr. Buchanan, because I think either Charles Wright or probably Sean Morley, Val Venus, said it was really hard for them to wrestle in a tie and a thing. Was it difficult for you to wrestle in that gear, in the Right to Censor gear?
It was, but there again, everything I'd done up to that point, and that's the real irony. All I ever wanted to do was wrestle in trunks and boots. I just wanted to be like a classic professional wrestler: trunks, boots, pair of knee pads. Wear a jacket out the ring, wrestle. But most of the time that I was in the business, I wrestled in pants and actually a tactical vest with Ray. We wrestled in the pants with the t-shirts as Truth Commission. So I was actually kind of used to it. The one thing that messed me up was the tie. me and Godfather were working each other, and I believe it was on TV. He went to give me an O'Connor roll. He pushed me into the ropes, and at that time, I was still wearing a real tie that you had to tie. He pushed me into the ropes, and I remember looking down, and I saw the tie wrap around the ropes, and he went to pull me off backwards, and it snatched, and felt like it broke my neck. It actually broke the tie. He rolls me in the back. So after that, if you'll notice, I started wearing a clip-on, and I started taking them off.
I would too, because that's scary.
Just a few matches, yeah. Oh, it cinched up on me. It's like, and then broke. So after that, I never wore. I always wore clip-ons, and I always took them off.
Good.
Neckties
But
can
yeah, I mean, I could see, you know, especially Val, you know, because he wrestled in trunks, and there's a difference. You know, I would just always try to buy or they would buy them for us. We didn't ever. They would give us, you know, 8 or 9 pair every time we came to TV. You know, just make sure they're not too tight, so you don't have any wardrobe malfunctions on live TV.
Have to. Chris, your next question.
So are we at 10 or 12?
You can ask
or
any one of
13
them.
year.
You can ask any one of them.
All right, so I guess like any standout memories on your time with Right to Censor and working with Stevie Richards, Godfather, Val Venus, and Ivory.
Oh God, tons of them. I remember. I think wherever arena we were at, and the night that we were adding Godfather, or we had the match for the hose, and I got there and I was pulling my bag in the back, and Stevie met me and he said, "Hey, did you hear they're gonna put Godfather with us?" And I was like, you know, my first question was like, I knew Charles at the time, you know. I said, "What does he think about that?" And Stevie told me to look around the corner, and I could see Vince, you know, kind of trying to persuade him, and I could tell that it wasn't something that he really wanted to do. But we went out and had that match, and man, the people were so into it. You know, I mean, you would have thought the world title was on the line, but it was the hose. If I won, you know, the hose had to go. You know, and every you can watch it back on every, you know, pinfall count that I was covering him. The people that won too, and he kicked out, and they were like, "Oh, thank God," you know. And when Stevie hit him with that chair at the end, and I went up, and you could just tell the look on their faces. I mean, that was you know, that was one of the night we kidnapped Val. We jumped into the van, and I want to say that we did it live because we couldn't get the door to shut. Stevie was driving, and as soon as we tossed him in and jumped in, Stevie hit the gas, so we all went flying out and through the back seats. And I couldn't grab I was supposed to close the door, and I couldn't grab the door because I was, you know, tumbling through the back. And so if you watch it as we're pulling off, the door's still open as we're pulling out of the parking lot.
Oh wow!
Just a lot of good times, man. A lot of the guys. I mean, the tag team was so stacked back then. You had Edge and Christian, the Hardys, the Dudleys, APA. I know I'm probably forgetting somebody.
New Age Outlaws.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Well, no, they had I think they had broke up at that point. I think Billy had got hurt or something.
That's what. Billy Gunn. I think he hurt his arm or something like that.
Hurt his shoulder up in Canada. Yeah. We were there at a house show up in Canada. Yes, he did the famouser, and when he come down, he tried to catch himself, I think, on his arm, and hurt his shoulder pretty good.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right, because then they put Road Dogg and X-Pac together.
Yep. Yep. And then their little later Kid Quick come in.
Right.
And they put them together. Yep. Yeah.
And Darius, you had a WrestleMania question related for Mr. Buchanan, didn't you?
I was just like, I was actually at WrestleMania X17 live as a kid, and
really?
You also had the big. I think you had the big 6-man tag against the APA and Taz, right?
Yes. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, we had the it was at the Astrodome.
Yep.
We had to we worked the APA all the time. I mean, that was just one of the we just kind of fit with those guys. Our gimmicks kind of, just made a match made in heaven, with us trying to stop people from drinking beer and going to strip clubs and all that kind of stuff. And of course, that's what they were into. So we had a natural storyline, so we could jump in and out with them anytime. But yeah, they put Taz with us, and the thing I remember, the Astrodome was so big that it felt like the noise came in waves. It felt like a wave that started at the back and then came, and then it got to you. It was crazy. It was so big, and I think it was Taker and Hunter had the match there. Yeah.
Where they went all over the arena.
Yeah. That was that one was pretty crazy. I brought my girls at the time. They were small, so we brought the whole family out. And actually, the other thing I remember about it, we brought the whole family out. Brought my girls out. My wife was there, and we got to leave that Monday morning. We were flying to, I think, Dallas to do Monday Night Raw, and then most of the families were flying home. So I was going to get them, drop off the rental car and get them to the airport. Go get my rental car. Somebody stole my rental car. So, and in all transparency, people say, "Oh, fame doesn't change me." Yeah, it does. Even if it's just a little bit, it changes you a little bit. And so I had a little bit of a diva moment. Probably should apologize to a few people at the Enterprise rental car out there in Dallas. Nothing major, nothing I could go to jail for or anything like that. But but then we figured out that somebody had stole the car. So yeah, we had to get another car and get my family to and then I get a call like me and Dwayne Johnson, Rocky, we're sitting there in the dressing room, and there's a few other people. I think Taker had walked in, and I get a call from Houston. And it's actually a detective from Houston, and says, "Hey, do you know so and so?" And I said, "No, never heard of him." He said, "Well, that's who stole your car. They found it at some hotel there in Houston." But yeah, I got my car stolen that night from the valet.
Welcome to Houston.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing was, I left it with the valets, and from what the detective told us afterwards, the guy was posing as a valet, and then he had somebody else. He was taking them to, and then handing the keys off to them, and they were taking them right out of the parking lot. So it was actually a ring of them, I guess. But I was the only one that that actually stole my car, so that figures.
All right.
Sorry to hear that, Mr. Buchanan. And of course, how did you feel when the Right to Censor gimmick came to an end? And did you enjoy your time in Right to Censor?
Oh, I loved it. Made some new friends. Got to. I mean, we had. We were really a part of the mix. At that time, we were in we were in storylines constantly. We were working every week. We were on the house shows, which back then was a big thing, because a lot of where you make your money is on the house shows, and you wanted to be on them back then because they were all selling out. No, I enjoyed it. I thought it probably had some more legs under it, but we just bought WCW. And how are you not going to put Booker T, Lance Storm, guys like, they just came in, Raven, how are you not going to put them on and use them on TV? So like I said, our roster doubled overnight. So, had to sit at home for a little while, but I mean, you never want to be at home, or I don't, because, if you're out of sight, you're out of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Was always the way I looked at it, whether you're home nursing injuries or whatever, they don't have anything, especially if they don't have anything for you, because now you're like, okay, how long are they going to keep paying me just to sit here and look pretty? So, you start pitching ideals and, sending them stuff. And, but I thought it could have went longer. I thought we had, we could have, I would love to have eventually worked with Steve. I think we did. Yeah, I think we did a little something where he came in there and give us a stunner or something. But it would have, and you know, there again, our gimmicks, which that was the beauty of it back then. Just about any gimmick anybody had meshed perfectly with us because everybody's gimmicks were based off fun and, you know, having a good time and you know, whatever vice you could think of. And ours was to shut it all down. So, you know, we had a built-in gimmick with almost everybody, but I'd really like to work with Steve some. You know, we did a little bit with Rocky, but you know, not much. I would like to have worked with but yeah, I would really like to have worked with guys like Benoit and Jericho a little more. We worked with Chris some, but you know, I thought we had a little bit longer legs for it.
You did work with, I remember this watching on SmackDown, you did work with the Dudley Boys one time where they pretended to join Right to Censor, and I remember Bubba cutting the promo saying, if joining Right to Censor is wrong, then I don't want to be right. So, like that promo.
I remember that.
Remember that?
It was if Bubba Ray said if putting people through tables is wrong,
Yes.
I don't want to be right. And then they attack. I remember that. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy working with them?
Oh, loved working with it. Yeah, we worked with them there, and then worked a bunch with them over in Japan. Me and D'Lo. Yeah, great guys. Never got hurt. Never got hurt working with them. Never worried about getting hurt. You know, they would put themselves. They would put themselves out there before they would put you out there. You know, they would take a risk hurting themselves before they took a risk of hurting you. And they were easy to work with, and they were cool guys. You know, I enjoyed working with them. But man, you know, I really thought when they pitched the idea of doing that, dressing them up like us, I really thought, I said, God, if they, even if it was just for a week or you know 2 weeks from one TV to the next, if they put them with us, the people would have rioted. You know, because it was starting to get, you know, we got the Godfather. You know, me, it was like, okay. You know, I was a jerk anyway. But then we got the Godfather, and that hurt them. And then Ivory came in, you know, and you know, Ivory toned herself down to do that gimmick. She wouldn't wear any makeup, and she made herself look very plain to pull
Very
it off.
librarian-esque.
Yes,
Very
exactly.
yes,
Oh yeah.
yes, absolutely. And you know, and then we get Val. And Val was hugely popular, you know, back then. So now the people are like, Jesus, you know, are they going, you know, if they had just come with us for a week, oh my God, the people would have just absolutely, excuse my language, shit on it. But you know, they did for when they came out dressed like us, man, the people were like, you could tell they were like, oh my God, not these guys.
Not the Dudleys.
But
Not the Dudleys.
yeah, not the Dudleys. Come on. I think they thought we had them for a minute, but you know, then you know, they got the.
I remember as a kid being like, I remember being a kid thinking, "Oh my God, no, we're not
like, no, not this.
No, please,
Yeah.
God, no.
No more
Yeah.
tables. I know, Mr. Buchanan, that Chris really wanted to ask this next question to you, because when I first saw this question, it was like an essay long. So I know he was very excited to ask this question. So, Chris, go ahead and ask this question.
Okay, so ultimately, Right to Censor did kind of win with the transition into the PG era, and I kind of had this vision for I kind of had this idea like for a sort of Illuminati gimmick. And so if Right to Censor was ever going to come back to WWE, yes, not just Ivory making her reappearance at the Royal Rumble with that gimmick, you know, would you guys maybe consider, I don't know, coming back in a way that makes commentary on the current state of censorship and make it look as though Stevie Richards has been the mastermind behind manipulating WWE's sponsors, and to further extent, Nick Khan and Vince McMahon, taking it even further, revealing that Chris Benoit's murder-suicide, being the catalyst for the creation of the PG era, was only a cover story, or even in the opportunity Richards needed to remove WWE's Jerry Springer style of filth from the airwaves itself. Going even further, or with that, Richards would also be revealed to be responsible for manipulating the political left into being tools of his censorship and merging himself within the social justice movement. After all, when his stable was suspended, and Richards himself had vowed he would continue his crusade, quote unquote, regardless of the setback. Do you think that's something creative would probably go for? And if not, why not?
I talked to Stevie not too long ago, and he said that from what he understood, there had actually been some talk, bringing us in for something like a Royal Rumble or something like that. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, we won. We did it. We got rid of everything that everybody liked. I mean, to me, that's the perfect storyline. I mean, do I think they'll? Who knows whether they would ever do anything like that or not. But yeah, I think you could go all kind of ways with it, because we had to change our content. I mean, some of the stuff we were doing back then, we were just barely eking by with it. Eventually it was gonna result in us going too far and having trouble with the network and stuff like that. So it's one of those things. It's like running it's like running in the dark naked with your eyes closed. You can only do it so long before you're gonna hit a tree. It's going there's no way we could have continued to just keep doing, because you have to keep pushing the limit further and further. You can't just stay at what you okay, we did that last week, let's do it again this week. You have to keep pushing, and I think we pushed just about as far as we could go and still be on TV.
I mean, you were having bra and panties matches.
Gotta miss those.
Yeah. So we had to dial it back at some point. But yeah, I mean, there's all kind of stories you could come out of it with. Stevie had been manipulating politics and stuff like that behind the scenes. There's all kind of ways you could go with it.
In this case, manipulating the lobbyists.
Yeah. There's all kind of directions you can go with it. I was so intrigued with Swagger and Dutch Mantel with the whole We the People thing, because it was totally organic. Nobody wrote that. Nobody, it was something that the fans just started it, doing it themselves, now, why they shut that down, who knows? But yeah, I mean, we were successful and didn't even know it.
Before I ask the next question, Mr. Buchanan, usually I ask the questions to the guest star, but this time I'm actually going to ask the question to one of my co-stars here, co-hosts here. Chris, are you alluding that in kayfabe, Right to Censor was the innovators of cancel culture?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah.
They would be
I always had this. I had this vision. I had this ideal one time of us showing back up on Monday Night Raw, and our pants are just tattered and our shoes are in pieces, and we got dust and dirt, and we're not clean shaven. That we've been out this whole 25 years, doing the fighting the good fight, and now we're back to claim our victory. Yeah, and then Cena comes out and destroys us, and I think that would be fun.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah, show up all these years later. Hey, we've been out there the whole time, fighting for you guys.
Like Jehovah's Witness.
I would mark out.
Yeah.
Bull, I will mark out if I saw you, Godfather, Val Venus, and Ivory and Stevie Richards come out in the Right to Censor gimmick in the year 2023. I would mark out for that.
Yeah.
Oh, I would too. It would be real fun. It would be funny.
Now you did mention
it would be real funny.
Now you did mention, of course, the Royal Rumble. You participated in the 2001 Royal Rumble, and I remember because this was the Drew Carey one when Drew Carey came out and Honky Tonk Man. I just had a question behind the scenes about this. Like in the Royal Rumble, like two-part question. One is, are all the men like in gorilla position waiting for their number to be called like when this rumble is happening? And also like in the ring, because like in a match you can call spots, but when you're in a battle royal, like I was just curious to know, how do you call spots in a battle royal when everyone's just pouncing on each other?
Well, you try not to, because there's so many guys in there. Um, Battle royals are hard because, well, they're not hard, but there's so many guys in it. It's so easy if somebody was to fall or trip or take a bump, and go down, and somebody stumbles over them and it knocks to it. It's just a real good chance for somebody to get hurt. So usually, my strategy or whatever was I always stay on my feet as much as you could. Kind of stay in the corners. But yeah, everybody's just backstage waiting their turn to go in. It makes for a kind of a long night because if you think about it, if you're way on down the list, you're just standing around for a while. But yeah, it was always fun. It's like I said, it's hard with that many people in there, to do anything other than just fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just my idea was always find somebody and drag them to a corner and just stay there and fight a while, and let it thin out a little bit.
Absolute more power to you. The next question I have, of course, a year later, in I think it's around late 2002, you re-debut on the roster as B Square, and you team up with John Cena and the rapping gimmick. Memories of doing the rapping gimmick and, of course, working with John Cena.
Oh, it was great. I'd watched seen John on dark matches out in West Coast, and seen him get better. After the Right Censor thing wound up, we wound up being off road for a few months, and I went down to OVW to work with some of the guys down there, and got to meet him down there. Of course, Orton was there, the big class, Lesnar, Shelton, all those guys were down there, and so I got to see, especially his mic skills. So when he got to the main roster, he was just doing doing darks and house shows, which at the time I was too. So when I saw him start, he did the Halloween party. I think it was the Halloween or the Thanksgiving party, the dress up party.
When he was Vanilla Ice, right?
Yes. When he did that, and then I think somebody told me, or I talked to him, and he said they were going to do the rap thing. And then once there again, I get to TV one day, and they tell me I'm going to be his security, his bodyguard, whatever. So I kind of me and Shelton Benjamin were riding together at the time. Me and Devon and Shelton had been riding together a lot, but Devon had just went back to Raw. Well, they put him and Bubba back together. So me and Shelton were riding together, and we were joking around about it. And I said, well, wouldn't it be funny, to have a redneck like me dressed up, in like Eminem? So we went out to a mall and we found the pants and the shirt and the hat and everything, and just kind of went, kind of played it by ear and went with it from there. And we had a great time. I thought, a lot of stuff we did was funny. I mean, it was some of those raps he would do coming out to the ring. It was hard to keep a straight face, but I enjoyed it. I think he did too. There again, it was fun. It was different for me because I'd always been a killer. I'd always been somebody's muscle, but it was always in a real serious light. So to me, it was fun because it was a chance to do something a little different.
Yeah. And before Darius asks his next question, let me just say that nobody does a spinning scissor kick like you, Mr. Buchanan. I was rewatching some of your old matches, and you do it with such style, though. You go off the ropes, and then you spin your legs 2 times before connecting with the opponents with your leg, doing that move.
Oh, well, yeah, once again, Booker T. I mean, I saw Booker T when he was working out in Global before they ever went to WCW, Harlem Heat. It was him and Stevie Ray were out there. And I remember, Stevie Ray was huge. So he was obviously the muscle, but, Book was the big two, and I thought to myself, that is, to me, him and Billy Gunn. I watched Billy Gunn too. I thought that's the evolution. That's what, to be our size, around in that 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", once you get up to 6'8", 6'9", now you're getting into Kane, Undertaker, Big Show range. To me, that's a giant. The 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" range, to me, I thought, to separate myself, kind of like what they did, Booker T did a lot of high flying, done a lot more off the ropes, jumping, how agile he was. And Billy Gunn did too. So that was really two of the guys, after I'd gotten the business and was working already, that was two of the guys that I watched. So yeah, I took I hope I don't think he did. I hope he never got offended by it. It's, what's that old saying? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I tried it and I said, dang, feels pretty good. I think I can do this. And since we worked in different companies, but I remember, when those guys came in, the day he came in, I never used it again after that. That's out of respect. But yeah, I mean, thank you. But yeah, I got it, But I saw Book do something one time and I tried it and I never tried it again. He did a front flip into a leg drop off the top rope. And I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I tried it and I rotated a little too far and I wound up hitting my face against my own knees. Wound up with two black eyes. And so I was like, okay, I guess he's got me on that one. I can't follow that. But yeah, I tried to, a lot of stuff, I watched a lot of Terry Gordy, a lot of Barry Windham, guys like Magnum TA growing up, the bigger guys. But once I got in the business, and I kind of saw them and what they were doing, and I said, that's how I set myself apart a little bit, is, doing some of the more agile stuff.
Yeah, and not many people can. You are already one of the few people that can do that. You, Bam, the late great Bam Bam Biggle, wrestler named Keith Lee. It's like you get these big guys, but they're also like as fast as like a roadrunner. Like they're big, like you guys are so strong, like big, but at the same time you move like light as a feather.
Agile.
Yeah.
Agility. That's what I was looking for. Agility.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I played basketball in college, so I had some springs in my legs. So, I just figured, take advantage of it.
I see.
Nice.
There, your question?
Yes. What made them decide to end the pairing with you and Cena?
Who knows? John came up. I think we were at the Meadowlands TV, and he came up and he said, "Hey, man, what's going on?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "They're splitting us up," and I said, "Really?" I said, "Well, that's odd," But I don't know. I mean, the thing I always figured was, I'd been there 8 years. We had a bunch of new guys, not aside from guys like Booker and guys like that. You had Chuck Palumbo, Sean Stacey. You had all those guys, young guys coming from WCW that were all big and jacked and could move and so like I said, our roster doubled overnight. I mean, you got to figure that there's going to be cuts. So they got Mike Awesome right before, a few months before me. They got me. D'Lo left right after that. Matt, Albert, he left, maybe 6-7 months after that. And then, but we all wound up in Japan. We all wound up in Japan, and that had been my plan. Whenever the run in WWE, if it'd been 2 months or if it'd been 20 years, whenever it was over, my plan was to go to Japan. So, I was disappointed, of course, but, I was really excited to be going over there. And, that was a real bucket list thing for me. And, I went over there and had a whole another 8-year career, 8, 9, 10-year career.
Many congrats to you, Mr. Buchanan, especially your work in All Japan.
Oh, yeah.
And we had, and we also had Eugene on the show, and he mentioned that a lot of guys wish they could have careers as long as the Undertaker's, and you would say that also holds true with you?
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, a lot of the guys that kind of took me under their wing when I first got up there. You know, Ron and John. You know, Bradshaw, Ron Simmons. You know, a lot of the guys that had been there for a while. Rikishi's always real good to me. And Rikishi told me one time, he said, this business is about longevity, you know, and really, I mean, you know, it's true. I mean, it's how long you can stay and keep making money and, you know, continue to be relevant in the business. I mean, that's what's, you know, it's all about really. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to have a career that long. But you know, I'd love to have a career that long and be at the top. You know, I got to the point. I think in 2012, I got to the point where, you know, I wasn't going to Japan anymore. Business was down over there a little bit. Masawa had died, you know, in the ring over there, and that killed Noah's business, and that's who me and D'Lo were with at the time. But I was still making decent money just doing indies around here in Georgia. But you know, I saw the writing on the wall and I said, okay, I better be preparing for something else. You know, after I'd done all right with my money, saved, you know, invested a little bit. So, I, you know, kind of stepped away from it and intended to stay away from it. But then my son, you know, I knew was gonna at least try it. And, so when he did, you know, I kind of started coming back around, and you know, here I am.
And you mentioned, of course, your son too, Brooke Jensen, who veteran NXT. Like, and you were featured in a lot of wrestling video games. You were in the first two SmackDown games. I believe you were in WrestleMania 2000 for Nintendo 64. No Mercy. Was like, did your son like find out like that you were a professional wrestler through the video games, or you told him before that?
Oh no, he grew up. He was born in 2001, so you know he was really too small to remember the WWE. But you know he grew up while I was going to Japan and doing indie shows around here. So you know he fell in love with it right off the bat, and you know he collected all the action figures and the rings, and I would always bring him stuff from Japan. So he just grew up in it.
And also, again, many congrats to your son for the NXT call up, because NXT is, you know, a big deal, especially if you're in WWE. NXT is like
It's a huge
stepping
deal.
stone to the main roster.
It's a huge deal.
Oh yeah. And my youngest son, he's 17. He just had a match last night in Tennessee. He's starting, and so he's been going about a year now. But kind of like Ben, you know, they're both amateur wrestlers, and they both played football. So during those seasons, you know, the pro wrestling kind of has to take a back seat. So, but yeah, he's getting started.
That's cool. And again, many congrats to you, sir. And I definitely want to bring, oh, anytime. I definitely want to bring up, which I believe you deserve an Oscar and an Emmy for this. When you came back in November of 2011, Mick Foley had the John Cena "This Is Your Life," and I've showed Darius and Chris this footage too. Like, I remember when I first watched this, I felt my sides were splitting because of how good you were, especially because how you turned a 180. You were like, teaming with John was the best time of my life, and he comes, come to think about it, let's see, I got fired, and then you're like, no, actually, you know what, John, you ruined my life.
Yeah. I just got called out of the blue. John Laurinaitis called me and said, "Hey, would you be available next Monday? They might have, you know, something they want you to do." And I said, "Sure." And he called me back and, you know, confirmed everything, and you know, told me what it was, and flew me up to Boston. I got to, you know, hang out with a lot of the guys I hadn't seen in a while. Meet some of the guys I hadn't met. But no, you know, I think things were a little more. I think when I was there before, you know, a lot of the promo process was kind of a here's your points you're trying to get to. Make sure you mention this, and this. You know, maybe, you know, they might give you something a little bit down. But yeah, I think you had a little more freedom to kind of ad lib. But I got there and they gave me the script of what they wanted me to say, and I, you know, to me, I always you have to make it sound like you. I think people get confused about you have to make it yours. You have to make it to make it believable. You have to somewhat believe it yourself. So, but yeah, I just I thought about it and I said, oh, that's that'd be pretty funny, just to start out about how great it was, and then I did get fired, and so yeah, it was fun though. Got to see him. Rocky flew in for that. Rocky came in for that, so I got to talk to him a bit. It was a great time.
Oh, you were just excellent in that thing. It's like I felt like you weren't even reading the script. It felt all real, like you tapped onto that raw emotion. So that's why I give you many kudos for that segment, because you made it feel very, very real.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
We have a couple of final questions before we wrap up here. Chris, any of your final questions or comments for Mr. Buchanan?
Well, let's see. Don't think I'll be asking you about the gorilla position necessarily, but instead, though, I'm kind of tacking a bit on until like the question I had before about Right to Censor's return and what we were talking about earlier. Do you suppose it could work with Sami Zayn possibly going back to his conspiracy theorist character, or looking into like what the hell is wrong with WWE, and then ultimately finding out that Steven Richards is behind like everything as it was, and when he finds out, exposes him, takes him down, it would be like an opportunity for like maybe not so much a regression, but a rebirth of the Attitude Era.
Oh yeah, it would be great, whether they would do it or not, who knows. But no, like I said, I mean, we kind of set the stage, story wise, for what we have, nowadays. Not just on, well, even more so in just culture than just on the show. I mean, we could come back and say, hey, we didn't get anywhere with this wrestling stuff, but we went out in the real world. You see what we've done. There's all kinds of stuff to do with, but yeah, Stevie was so good in that, playing that part, making it sound credible. I say everybody, whether they liked it or not, everybody, it never showed in the product, or when we were trying to get stuff done, or anything like that. Who not, just like, like I said with the Cena thing, it was out of the blues, got a phone call. So you never know. Anything can happen in the WWE universe, yeah.
Well said, Mr. Buchanan. Darius, your next question? Your final question?
My question is just generally, what do you just think of today's wrestling, just in your own opinion? If you follow it enough.
Oh, I do. I like the fact that, and it probably might sound strange coming from a big guy, but I like the fact that wrestling has taken a prominent position in technical wrestling. The kind of wrestling that Malenko did, and those guys. It's much more accepted today than just two big guys plodding around the ring. Which I think at the end of the day, everybody loves to see a fight. Even the Grayson matches. But everybody likes to see a fight, and if you can give them, those two big guys out there just wailing away with each other, but at the same time, one of the things Tommy Rich taught me is you got to have a little bit of everything on the show, and that's what AEW does, of course. But that's what Vince does so well and has done so well for so long. You think about it, you've got wrestling, you've got fighting, you got brawling, you've got girls, you got guys, you've got all these different scenarios and skits, and you've got comedy wrestlers, you've got serious wrestlers. There's a variety of whatever. You can come to a WWE show and find something that you like. And
Agreed.
that's wrestling in general. You know,
Mm-hmm.
any card, if you look at it, I mean, a good card has, you know, a little bit of everything. You know, it's got a technical wrestling match, but it's also got you know, as JR says, slobber knocker. You know,
Absolutely, yes.
and then you know, somewhere on there's a comedy match.
A
You
total
know?
slobber knocker. One of the final questions I have, this is probably gonna be my final question for you, Mr. Buchanan, and that is, what's next for Barry Bull Buchanan? Now, this is the part of the show, Mr. Buchanan, where this is an open forum. You could say, talk, promote, hype, anything you want. It's an open mic. I am passing the proverbial microphone onto you. The floor is yours, Mr. Buchanan.
Just you know, like I said, I've most of my career, I was a quote unquote bad guy. A lot of my career around here, you know, I was babyface. But you know, I just I appreciate the fans. You know, you like to let the fans know how much you appreciate them, because you know it's no fun wrestling in front of two people. It really ain't. I mean, and nobody likes to do it. We all like to get to the arena and it's packed and the people are live, and you know, and you know, without them, you know, you're just out there, you know, practicing, you know, for nothing. So you know, just always appreciate the fans that have, you know, whether they booed me or cheered me. You know, I'm glad they came, and I'm glad they cared enough to boo or cheer. But yeah, like I said, my youngest son, he's going into his senior year. He's got football and wrestling coming up, but he's working these shows around here. You know, a lot of places I used to go. But he wants to eventually make his way down to NXT also. So you know, I'm just starting over with another one. You know, same thing I did with Ben with Brooks. I'm just starting over with him. And hopefully here in a few weeks, I don't really have anything nailed down just yet, but I'll be opening up my training school here where I live. So, you know, I'll have some more details later on, but yeah, that's kind of what's coming up in the near future for me.
Many congrats, and of course, much appreciated for what you've done in the wrestling business. Before we conclude, let me just say,
Thank you.
let me just say before we conclude that this is my final thoughts, and that is, not only thank you for this incredible interview, Mr. Buchanan, but thank you for those years of memories you gave, both like Chris, Darius, and myself watching wrestling every day, and you have this incredible gift where you can take a 10-year-old fan, no, you could bring a 33-year-old something fan, bring him way down here, make him feel like he's 10 years old again watching the Attitude Era in WWF.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, that's, you know, that's
it's a total throwback.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Thank you.
And I'm gonna send you a copy of this interview before like when I'm done editing it and putting like my music in here. Like, you'll definitely get a copy of it, and this will be edited, don't you worry. And also, one last thing before we conclude, and I waited a long time to do this, and guys, you know where this is gonna lead to, and that is Bull Buchanan. Bull Buchanan.
Hey.
Bull Buchanan. We thought.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
My apologies for the one-hand clap. I can only like hold my phone and yeah, clap at the same time so much, you know.
But thank you again, Mr. Buchanan, and you have an awesome night. And I will message you when this is ready.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Have a great night, everybody.
Take it easy.
Bye.